fighting another emergence of universal evil. These cases have been numerous. They had a lot of pretexts, used a lot of arguments, but just look at real examples. The situation in Iraq, the situation in Afghanistan. Different situations, different means of US presence, and the Afghanistan even had the UN Security Council mandate, but they still didn't follow it. So this situation could be used here as well. Just the situation in the Middle East, the north of Africa, they're proving that this approach, based on the force without the international law, without any mandate or any clearance, only leads to the aggravation of problems, both already present in the issue and in the US themselves.
Thank you very much for your answer. My second question, according to reports from the Bloomberg News Agency, the United Kingdom authorities have sent a new batch of Storm Shadow cruise missiles to the Kyiv regime. The article indicates that this decision was made against the backdrop of Trump's refusal to send Tomahawks to Ukraine. How would you comment on this? Well, long ago, not 1 year ago, not 2, not 3, or not 5 years ago, I did question the materials spread by this news agency that you mentioned, and long ago I have been saying that it is no longer mass media when it comes to the genre, when it comes to transparency of its actions. It's nothing but the place where the data is no longer verified. That is why, to comment on the information that they published, I am not going to do this. Many times we disproved the misinformation they have published about Russia, but I would like to say about different thing. No doubt, our Ministry of Defense tracks deliveries to the Kyiv regime by different Western coalitions, and we comment on this based on the data we receive from the Ministry of Defense. But another thing is of interest in this case. I believe that the key point is that the Great Britain, from point one, was interested not in diplomatic and political settlement of this question, but in fomenting and triggering this conflict. This was long before 2022. Just remember how the British ship forced its way through close to the Russian border in 2022. Just recall the destructive behavior of British representatives when there was an opportunity to hold negotiations with the representatives of the Kyiv regime at their request in 2022. That is why Britain was in favor of escalation in Ukraine from the very beginning, and it was doing everything possible in order to prevent by all means the diplomatic settlement of this crisis with the political tools in order to find a solution to this crisis. That is why the position of Great Britain and the official authorities in London have not changed at all. We understand quite well what they are being engaged in. They are engaged in the escalation of the conflict. This is the only thing they need in this regard. Thank you very much. Xinhua, are you with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. I'm from Xinhua. PRC President Xi Jinping recently held a meeting with Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin, who was on a visit to China. What does Russia think of the outcomes of this visit, and what do you think of further development and an interaction in line with the strategy of socioeconomic development and China's 15th Five-Year Plan? I believe that this visit was well covered by mass media of Russia, China, and global media. Let me remind you that from November 3rd to November 4th, Mikhail Mishustin paid an official visit to China in order to hold the anniversary meeting of the heads of governments of our two states. He was received by the head of the People's Republic of China. The parties discussed the strategic partnership and the other relevant points with a focus on promoting development, trade, and economy. They also exchanged their views on projects in the humanitarian investment spheres. They also exchanged their opinions on the international regional agenda. The visit was held in a friendly atmosphere, which is a key feature of Russian-Chinese relations. Also, the key great number of agreements was signed, including in agriculture. The cooperation between our two states plays a key role in global development, and the two sides agreed to boost cooperation in key spheres. Thank you very much. RIA News, are you with us? Good afternoon. We have two questions today. My first question. The Moldovan government approved the denunciation of the agreement with Russia on the creation and function of cultural centers in order to close the Russian Center for Culture and Science. I would like to learn your opinion in this regard. Well, to understand or to build a logic chain of events, of consequences, why Chisinau carried out these steps. Let me remind you, on November the 5th, the government of Unteanu, absolutely in a groundless and counterproductive manner, took the decision to denounce the 1998 Russian-Moldova Intergovernmental Agreement on the creation and functioning of cultural centers. On the basis of this agreement, the Russian Center for Science and Culture operated in Chisinau. We also paid attention to the words of the head of the Republic's Ministry of Culture that the Russian House allegedly became an instrument for spreading harmful narratives and a threat to national security. And perhaps they misunderstood something. We do not spread any narratives. We spread ideas, and the narratives are in the heads of some other people, and allegedly this all is being done under the cover, quote, some actions aimed at undermining the country's sovereignty, unquote. And a question comes up to my head. When they close the center, will they stop talking about any threats to their sovereignty, or will they continue this rhetoric? We'll have to track this. Of course, no facts, no evidence have been provided. Nothing that could be used to prove this. Why I say that no logical, no consequential chain can be formed in this way. When you accuse something, you have to provide some evidence, some symbolic evidence or some practical evidence. You have to cite some examples of any destructive activities. No examples have ever been cited. Why so? Because the Russian Center, in reality, is engaged in preserving the centuries-old Russian cultural heritage in Moldovan territory and is a place of unity for a huge number of Moldovan residents, helps Moldovan applicants to enter state-funded places in the best universities in Russia. There is nothing about its activities that could even remotely resemble an attack on the sovereignty, as they said, independence, and even more so, a subversion of Moldova's national security. Well, it depends on what they mean by saying this. If they mean that the high educational level of their own citizens, of Moldovan citizens, is an obstacle to them and to their sovereignty, then perhaps, in essence,